speaking of which, and I'll let you cue this up because I haven't dug as deep into it as you have, but I guess the DOJ also has put out some compliance program guidance as it relates to technology overall, but AI specifically. So, I mean, what's your take on this, or maybe you can explain it first?
Yeah, so the Department of Justice has put up a whole new set of rules around a variety of topics, including whistleblowing and other aspects of business. But the most relevant piece for right now is that there's some big revisions to corporate compliance associated with the use of technology. Obviously, AI has been a big deal, and basically, the Department of Justice is saying, as you try to figure out how AI is associated with crimes, fraud, and other risks, you have to think about what the company has done in the first place to put governance in place and to implement actual controls to acknowledge what the AI is capable of doing to change your operations and your outcomes. So, as simple as that sounds, again, we just talked about how vague AI can be and how difficult it can be to define those governance issues in the first place. Yet, this is now going to be, think of it as a vector of attack that lawyers can potentially use from the government perspective to poke holes in a company's use of emerging technology.
Well, I think what is interesting, so I'm actually going to read from the specific document that we'll share here, but it talks about the fact that there can be suggested that false approvals and documentation generated by AI could be used to facilitate criminal activities. Companies also risk on relying on inaccurate data leverage from untested or unreliable technologies. Shocker there. And so therefore, I guess says to protect against the risk, DOJ expects companies to, and it goes and lists a whole bunch of these things that is the expectation. And I think what's interesting is there's clearly setting up this line. There's two parts of this, or maybe even three, right? The first is the sort of direct criminal activity
Yes.
where I'm either enabling something or allowing for it. And this is something we've seen within like the social networks, where it's like if they're able to facilitate criminal actions and you're not doing anything to stop it, then you can be held liable. And then the second is just this negligence that could lead to bad decisions um, based on the data that is coming that somebody might be relying on. And that I think is the tougher of these two. Um, Especially because some of these things on the one hand are common sense. You said it sounds easy. It didn't sound easy to me at all because it's like they're common sense on the one hand, and then it's like it is, in the eye of the beholder in so many ways. So like just this first one, right, is that the DOJ expects companies to assess and mitigate risks associated with the use of new or emerging technologies, including AI. Well, okay, that makes total common sense. I should assess and mitigate risk, but who's to say that what was sufficient, right?
Right.
And whether or not it rose to this level of negligence from a compliance perspective, and there's versions of that sort of hold true with all of it. And so, I mean, it's sort of my same answer to the California bill that Newsom just vetoed. It's like the practical application of this stuff. It's like we all sort of agree in principle that there needs to be controls, there needs to be regulation, there needs to be oversight, but it's so amorphous. It's like, how do you actually make sense of it? And I think we'll probably end up, as I think we actually have some history with this, we'll end up with case law. We'll end up with judges and
Mhm.
juries making that decision on a very specific contextual basis, and eventually you get this canon of case law that we can then use as a model for it. But until then, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough.
Yes, and then we're gonna have to play this grab bag game of which court ended up getting the lawsuit. Is it one where the judges have some experience with IP and tech, or is it one where they usually deal with farming issues and then have to deal with the results? But I do find it kind of darkly funny that all the AI companies have been asking the government to take action and to provide either legislation or guidance on how to manage AI. And now that they're starting to do it, the AI companies are starting to realize, Oh, not like that. What you're providing is guidance that is so vague and so unactionable that we can't really figure out what's going on. And it would not be a surprise to see, honestly, some of these California companies try to set up operations or headquarters elsewhere, if only to avoid some of the legal
That
ramifications associated
I
with.
think that I think it's one of the big reasons that Newsom ultimately vetoed it
Mhm.
because of that risk, and I think it was a very real concern, particularly for because the people who's going to be the organizations who's going to impact the most are some of the largest employers in the state.